I'm just gonna give it a minute until I can see that you are actually here. Welcome everyone. If any of you were watching this on replay in the next few days, feel free to skip the next 9 minutes. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. We are live from the city of London, and it is UK time on Sunday the 30th of October 2024. So if it's no longer Sunday the 30th for you, you're probably watching the replay in the years, who knows. I'm just gonna wait until I see you guys in the chat. Perfect, thank you Tish. So you can hear and see well. Amazing. And Natasha is here. Welcome Natasha. Welcome everyone to have you along. We've got about 8 minutes before to start. We're just waiting for everyone to arrive. Hi Julie. Yeah, it's a bit cold tonight. It's 8 degrees. It's not too bad in the evening, but it's getting very cold in the mornings this day. I often start tours very early at the Tower of London, like 8 a.m. and it's often like 4 degrees Celsius this week. So it definitely got a bit colder, but at least it's dry, so I can't complain. All I need is dryness. It's just much easier when the weather is dry. And hello again, Ronnie. So we've got, hi Linda. We've got 6 minutes to go. And Suzanne is here as well. Welcome, Suzanne. You might see behind me, I've got those wigs for the lawyers. I can show you actually. Let me flip. Perform and work in a crown court, you'd have to wear those. So if I was gonna become a barrister, I'd have to consider one of those. Hi Chaz. I don't know if it's Chaz or Chaz, but welcome back. And Catherine and Suzanne and Laurie, nice to see you here. You're not late, Laurie, we've not started yet, so don't worry. I like the socks as well. Trust me, I'm a lawyer. Trust me, I'm a barrister. Do you think we should trust them? I don't know if we can trust anyone wearing this type of socks. And Tariq is here. Welcome, Tariq. We've got about probably 5 or 6 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. If any of you chat, it's always great to see some new names. And if any of you are watching this on replay in the next few days or weeks, you can still skip the next 5 minutes to go straight into the tour. Oh yeah, so you're late for the pre-tour, but you're not late for the tour. Right, I need to move because otherwise if the chat is on the white background, I can't see it. Perfect. Now the chat is on my shoulder, so I can actually read it better. Because the chat is white, so if it's on a white background, it's hard to read. Oh, you like the jacket? I prefer the wigs. Maybe I should dress as a naughty lawyer for Halloween. Although I'm not sure I can afford any of those wigs. They're probably not very affordable. Right, let's see the time. We've got 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes before to officially get started. So we are live from Fleet Street. And Bonnie is here. Nice to have you here, Bonnie. I wear the wig, you wear the jacket, perfect. Completely new, and if you were watching maybe the replay in the next few days, if you were wondering how do I catch this live, I'm tired of watching the replays. I want to see the live. I want to be in the chat with you and use the interactive features. The best way not to miss the live, it's actually to subscribe to the channel and then hit the little bell, the little notification bell for everything. This way you should get a little email or a notification when I go live. I say should because it works 90% of the times. I think sometimes if you are already on YouTube watching something else, it might not work. But anyway, it's the best way. And Linda is here. Welcome, Linda. So we've got, let me check, 1 minute to go. Oh, I've got an email. If it's any of you that dropped me a tip, that's very nice of you. It might not be. It might be some joke. But yeah, I don't really see the tips live when I'm. I mean, if it's on PayPal or buy me a coffee, I don't see them live. But they are very, very much appreciated. I'll see them after the tour. And welcome, William. And Down is here as well. Welcome, Down. If I see Suzanne socks, yes, I'll let her know. Cool. Let me see. 1 minute still. Hold on. Bear with me. I need to untangle something. My microphone thing is all. Oops, there we go. I'll yell to her then. You only get the notification 30 minutes ahead. Yeah, that's the way it is on YouTube. It's better than nothing. Oh, hi Joe, nice to see you here. Cool, let's check the time. And it is officially time to start. It is 10:30 p.m. in London. Welcome everyone. If any of you were completely new to me, I'm Natalie, and let's go. Let's flip this camera around and let's get started. As the street of the press, the street of the ink. We are in the city of London. When I say the city, I mean the city with a capital C. The old city of London. You can see, when you see those little pillars with the stars on the white background, that you are in the city. You have quite a few old pubs on Fleet Street. And the Olde Cock Tavern over here is one of them. It is, the original one is from 1549. It's been rebuilt since, but lovely pub. I think it's a Green King today. And it used to be a gin palace, as you might be able to read from the sign in the middle. And hi Kurt, and welcome Abe and everyone that just joined. It is, would you believe, haunted. The ghost story in that one is not as old as many of the ghost stories in London pubs are often Victorian and stuff. This story came out in the 80s. When a young barmaid was finishing her shift, she was actually taking a bin bag out through the back door. So she had this large rubbish bag, and as she opened the door, she was heard screaming and screaming. So the landlady, Sarah Kennedy, ran to assist the young Australian barmaid, and she said she'd seen a ghost. She said she'd seen a floating head at the back. And the landlady was like, oh, you go upstairs, you go and chill upstairs, relax, calm down, and come back down when you're ready. So she went upstairs in one of the rooms up there, and suddenly Sarah Kennedy, the landlady, heard her scream and scream again. So she ran upstairs to see what was wrong with the young bartender. She had seen a portrait on the wall, and she was like, it's him, that's the head. That was a portrait of Oliver Goldsmith, the playwright. The pub has been visited with visited by quite a few famous names. Samuel Pepys, Samuel Johnson, and Oliver Goldsmith was one of his favorite pubs. So apparently, when she saw the portrait, she recognized it. So it is said that the pub is haunted by the ghost of Oliver Goldsmith. I don't know why his head was floating, because he was not beheaded or anything, but he was indeed buried at the back in the Temple's Church graveyard. So, maybe. Anyway, let me see you up there. You might be able to see the sign. It's 3 little squirrels. Gosling Bank, it's a forerunner of Barclays. It belongs to Barclays today, but I still have the old sign. I love my squirrels. Squirrels are a great symbol of banking. In quite a few countries, you have banks with squirrels as a logo, because of course they bank their nuts away. When you give them a nut in the park or an acorn, half of the time they'll go and bury it for later, and then they forget where they are. So they actually are great at spreading the seeds. Anyway, see this lovely gate here. This is the entrance to the Temple Church, the London headquarters of the Knight Templars. The Knight Templars, they were chivalric order. They were warrior monks. Today it's quite difficult to imagine, but they were highly trained warriors, like soldiers, but they were monks at the same time. They were all across Catholic Europe, mainly in France. And they were, so because they were monks, they had sworn to poverty. Yet, they were one of the first international corporations ever. And they were extremely rich because people would give to the Templars whatever they had. It could be a bag of apples, it could be land, it could be money. And they were accumulating so much wealth that some of the kings, particularly the King of France, became a bit jealous. And they started to be accused of random crimes, like homosexuality, and they were accused of having the young Templars kissing the bodies of the older Templars and stuff like that. They were also accused of worshipping a mysterious head. That is actually possible. It could have been the head of John the Baptist. Some historians believe so. So then their religion might have actually been Johanism. And some even accuse them of having converted to Islam. Who knows? And above, so the room. Henry was the first son of James I. We tend to forget that Charles I was not meant to be king. He was the spare. He had an older brother, Henry. So that was his little office up there. Henry sadly died. He was a very popular young prince. He was very popular once being the Prince of Wales. And he probably would have been a more popular king than his brother that was famously beheaded. Anyway, on the other side, it's the old Bank of England pub. Lovely, lovely pub inside. I've done a little short on YouTube of the inside. If you wanted to see it, I'll put it in the. If I remember, I'll put it in the description after the tour, because the inside is quite cool. They still have quite a bit of memorabilia of the bank, and also you can sit on a barber chair, a Sweeney Todd barber chair. Anyway, this is the Middle Temple entrance. The Middle Temple, that's one of the 4 inns of laws. So when you become a barrister in this country, inns of sorry, I'm a bit in the middle. The 4 inns of law. So you've got Gray's Inn, Lincoln's Inn, Middle Temple Inn, and which one did I forget? Inner Temple. So this is the little crest up there of Middle Temple. Middle Temple Hall inside might be haunted. There's allegedly the ghost of Henry Hawkins hanging around. Henry Hawkins was what he was known as the hanging judge. We had 2 hanging judges over the years. Hawkins was the second one. He was in Victorian times. He was known to be a bit too much in favor of the death penalty. That's the tobacco blenders. I love those old signs. And in Inner Temple's Hall, allegedly in Victorian times, when they did a bit of refurbishment, they found a little box that was bricked up in the walls with a human skeleton inside. We still don't know who. Anyway, let me show you the site of a former tavern here, the Devil's Tavern. I've not been, because sadly it closed exactly 200 years before I was born. But I think if I lived in London at the time, I would have loved to visit. It's been visited by I think Shakespeare's and Samuel Pepys as well, and quite a few famous names. Right, let me turn around so you see Queen Victoria on the Temple's Bar. So this is the Temple's Bar. You might see at the top the Curtis saying Hawkins was the judge of the trial of Thomas Neil Cream. Thomas Neil Cream, if you don't remember, we talked about him. We did a full tour about him, actually. You know what? We'll see one of the spots he used to live at when he was a student at St. Thomas's Hospital in a moment. If I don't forget, I'll tell you when we get there. He, for the ones that don't know or that don't remember, that's the serial killer that was killing sex workers at the beginning of the 1890s with pills. He was poisoning them. Anyway, so yeah, the Temple Bar. You might see at the top there's a dragon. Some people call it a griffin, but it's not. It's a dragon. That signifies that you are entering the city of London. So if you see the front of a dragon, you are entering the city. If you see the bum of a dragon, you're leaving the city. The city, when I say the city, it's the old city. It's only one of our 32 boroughs. It's a bit like a city in the city. The City of London, they have their own Lord Mayor of London. They have their own police forces. So if I was to commit a little crime straight ahead, I'll have to deal with a different police force than if I did it to my right. And the Temple's Bar, so today it's a bar. It used to be a full gate, with arches. But they had to move it eventually. I think it's in 1878 they moved it, because they had those double-decker, like a bus. They were drawn by horse and carriages, but they were too big to go through the gate. So they moved the gate closer to St. Paul's Cathedral, and they placed the bar instead. Oops, sorry. Now let's go and see a former members club over here. It is the Wigs and Pen Club. So the Wigs and Pen, that was one of those clubs for journalists as well as lawyers. Fleet Street, as we mentioned, was the street of the ink, the street of the press. The newspapers have all moved away now. Actually, that's why the club closed. I think 2003 it was, because a lot of journalists were not here anymore. After that, it became a Thai restaurant at some point. There was an office inside last year. Now it seems to be empty. So one day we might have a new business. So it's quite an old building. It's from the 1600s. And the building is haunted by the ghost of a solicitor that worked himself to death, whatever that means. He worked and probably forgot to eat or sleep. What a combo, yes, lawyers and journalists. Now you still have the lawyers, but you don't have the journalists anymore. Right, let's go and take a look at Twinings, the tea shop. Twinings, it's amazing that it's still here. It's been here for over 300 years. It's from 1707, the shop. The history of tea is quite interesting. It is Catherine of Braganza, Charles II's wife, that really popularized it. But the shop did not really start as a tea shop. It used to be a coffee house. The coffee houses in London, they were places for men only. They were places where men could come and debate the politics or conduct their business, because they knew if they went to the pub, they'll get drunk and they wouldn't really accomplish anything. So they'll go to the coffee houses. And Thomas Twinings, he started to sell tea here. And that was a bit of a dilemma, because ladies wanted to come and buy some tea, but the coffee houses were for men. So that's when they allowed ladies as well. And they actually sold more dry tea than served tea. And it's amazing that the shop is still there. I've not been inside for many years. They used to, I don't think they do anymore, but they used to have a tip jar that spelled tips T.I.P.S. Because some claim, it's very much debatable, but some claim that tips is meant to stand for to ensure promptness or to ensure prompt services. Probably not true, but hey ho. Let me step back so I'll show you the logo. So the Twinings logo, it's the oldest logo still in its original position, 1787, the logo itself. So the black letters with the golden background. What you see above it, that is a royal warrant, the little crest. So that's what we get when if you supply Buckingham Palace for at least 5 years over the last 7 years, and that's a great seal of approval and a great marketing boost as well. You've got the two little tea traders back to back, and the golden lion at the top there. That's because that was the logo of the coffee shop before that, the Tom's Coffee House. They had a golden lion. You drink PG, unacceptable. I drink anything really. Yes, Jane Austen was asked to come and buy some for her mother. There's also there's a portrait as well of Thomas Twinings that was painted by William Hogarth, apparently to pay for his bill. He didn't have the money to pay for it, so he decided to do a portrait of Twinings instead. John would be horrified, yes. And let me show you a lovely pub. Oops. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I said, Kurt. I think there's a bit of a delay in the chat, so sometimes. So this is the George, beautiful pub. Let me show you the top. And guess what? It is haunted as well. A lot of pubs and theatres have a ghost story in London. I love to tell you those stories, but you know, sometimes you're like, is it a marketing boost? Is it because you want to be featured in all the books about the ghost of London and everything? Because like the story about the other one, the story about the portrait, I know at least 3 establishments in the next mile that sorry, I think this guy was trying to let me go, but not the other, so I had to wait. So yeah, I know quite a few stories with a ghost that is then recognized on a portrait. So I think sometimes some of the stories get mixed up over the years. Anyway, let me show you the George from here. So the ghost is actually known as George. It came up in the 70s when they did some refurbishment, and they had a painter going down the basement. And he comes back up, he's all white. So the landlord was like, "You okay, mate?" And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just that bloke downstairs is staring at me. The guy dressed up like a period drama or something. And the landlord was like, "What bloke?" He was like, yeah, the guy looked dressed up like some kind of knight or something downstairs. And then the landlord was like, "Oh, no, don't worry. That's the ghost. That's George. My wife sees him all the time." So apparently he's a friendly ghost. And let me show you a beautiful toilet. So if you come around here and you really need to urinate, well, this beautiful loo has won the Loo of the Year award. So it probably was an amazing toilet. I don't think it's opened anymore at all, because look at the amount of autumn leaves in the staircase. I don't think those staircases have been used for a while. So they're probably not ever opened anymore. The George. Oh, I didn't know they had a vegan restaurant above the George. On the first floor, it's still, a few years ago I was up there for a comedy night. Didn't realize it was, it might be the second floor. I've never been more than the first floor, I think. Anyway, let's go and see Dr. Samuel Johnson. I've just casually called him a doctor. He was not really a doctor. He didn't actually get his degree from Oxford University. He came back years later after publishing the first English dictionary, and he was like, "Oh, can I get my degree now?" So they kind of gave him an honorary degree. Anyway, so this is Samuel Johnson. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's known for the English dictionary. It was not exactly the first one. They had tried in Tudor times, but it wasn't very successful. Dr. Johnson is also famously known for the quote, "A man tired of London is a man tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford." And I can agree. We'll talk about Dr. Johnson a little bit more in a while. For now, let me show you the damage from the Blitz on St. Clement's Day. So you see all the damage over here. They've decided not to fix it. They've decided to, keep it as a memento, really. Now, Dr. Johnson, we'll go and see where he lived in a moment. Little less known fact about Samuel Johnson, he very probably suffered from Tourette's syndrome. Of course, they didn't have a diagnosis for it at the time, because you might know Tourette's has been discovered much later by Georges Gilles de la Tourette in France. We've seen his grave. You might remember when we went to France about a year and a half ago now. But yeah, apparently Samuel Johnson had some verbal tics and physical tics. He was making noises and stuff, and at the time, people would think he was not well, and they were actually surprised to find out he was very intelligent and very coherent. So I think it's nice to remember, because there's a lot of people suffering from Tourette's today, and I think it's nice for them to know that some very influential people of the past were suffering from the same condition, although they were not diagnosed yet. But yeah, he potentially also had some quite severe OCDs, because apparently he wanted, like when he was walking down an alleyway, he'd have to go always with one foot first, And that's clearly OCD as well. Because when you got OCD, you think if you don't do those things, something bad will happen. Anyway, we'll get back to Dr. Johnson in a moment. For now, let me show you the Royal Court of Justice. So beautiful building, 1882, neo-Gothic style, and it is beautiful. And you can go inside. So if you wanted to see the justice system at work, you can go and visit. Let me show you those benches. They have those things to see those little metal things there. That's to avoid the skaters doing any figures on the benches. So it's not for the homeless, because it doesn't really stop a homeless sleeping there, but it stops the skater boys. Anyway, so yeah, the Royal Court of Justice, you can come and witness a trial. I have been myself maybe 3 years ago, no, even more, no, maybe 4 years ago with my sister, because she came to visit and we had already done most of the touristic attractions in London. So she was like, what are we gonna do? So I was like, I don't know, do you wanna go and see a trial? So we turn up 10 a.m. in the morning, and it's a bit intimidating because you have to go through security, like airport type security, and then you're like, what do I do now? Where do I go? So I went straight to the lady and I was like, hey, are there any good cases on today? And the lady was like, all the cases are good over here, but if you want the criminal court, you want to take a right. So we went right, of course. It's quite impressive in there, because the lawyers, they do have those little wigs, and the moment they put it on, the show is starting. Before that, it's starting. And apparently, I've not witnessed it, but apparently if they forget to put it on, the judge would go, I cannot hear you. So quite interesting. It's quite difficult to follow what's happening though, because you don't get a synopsis of what's happening. So if you join at day 4, you've got no idea what happened day 1, 2, 3. So my crime, the crime I witnessed, I don't even know what the crime was. It was a young man from the gypsy community that had buried something, but I don't know what. His lawyer really insisted on the fact he was from the gypsy community, like if being locked up was harder for them than it would be for any of us. But I don't know what he buried. Maybe gun or money, or not a body, because clearly there wasn't it didn't seem like a murder trial to me. But yeah, I should go again. Talking about Tours, we were talking about Gilles de la Tourette. This is St. Martin's of Tours. You might remember we went to Tours and we talked about him. He's giving away his jacket to a poor man. That was said by Samuel Johnson. What was said by Samuel Johnson? I've missed something. Anyway, did you guys all see Sweeney Todd? Any of the movies or any of the musicals? Let me know in the chat if you've seen it. You want to come with me? Well, when you come to London, Natasha, we can go and see a trial. Anyway, this is the infamous Bail Yard. Now, Sweeney Todd, for the ones that don't know, there are different versions of the story, but it's basically a barber on Fleet Street. Yeah, you've seen it. Cool. Oh, Tired of Life. Yeah, that's Dr. Johnson. Oh, you went to the premiere. Cool. And so it's a barber on Fleet Street. He's got different motives in different versions of the story, but he basically kills some of his customers. And drags them into a tunnel under the church and down here to Bail Yard, where Miss Lovett has a pie shop where she bakes the best pies in London with human meat. So quite a gruesome story, and it is a fiction. Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. But yeah, that's where the fictional pie shop would have been. That pie shop is definitely fictional. Whether there was indeed a pie shop that sold human meat anywhere else, it's debatable. But the Fleet Street story with the Sweeney Todd character, that's fictional. And that story, the Sweeney Todd name, came out in 1846 in a penny dreadful. The penny dreadfuls, for those of you that don't know, they were those type of very cheap literature that were sold for a penny. In the 1840s, they had just invented the steam press. So suddenly literature was much more affordable. And those penny dreadful, they were, so this is the old Bank of England again. Again, I'll put a little video of the interior in the description, because I did a little short in there a while ago. Quite a cool pub, mainly for the deco. And they have a lot of Monopoly thing as well, because it's a bank, of course. So it was a bank. It was a branch of the Bank of England. Anyway, back to Sweeney. So a penny dreadful, they were very often inspired by real events, real crimes, and they were sold very cheaply. Sadly, a lot of the kids used to read them as well. And some of the stories were very gruesome. And so the original penny dreadful with the story of Sweeney Todd was called String of Pearls. You can see the Prince Henry's room a bit better from here. And the original story is a bit more messed up than the more modern musical version. And actually, Sweeney Todd was not even the main character, but the killer was so the atrocities were so horrible that he kind of took over. But yeah, so the penny dreadful was published in 1846, but the story was set in 1785. So they used the background of a former period of history before them, while it was published through the Industrial Revolution. There was probably a reason for that. It's that in Victorian times you were still hanged, but not for everything. In Georgian times you'd be hanged for anything, so you might as well kill. And in Victorian times, a lot of people moved into the capital because of the Industrial Revolution. So suddenly, they didn't know their barbers anymore. They didn't know their bakers anymore. They didn't know their butchers anymore. Coming from a small village, and you didn't trust what was in your meat pies anymore. A bit like today, with the you might remember the horse meat scandal in Europe. We still don't quite know what we're eating today. But there was a big Victorian fear of what, not knowing what you're eating. Anyway, so this is Sanduston in the west. It is featured in Sweeney Todd as well. In some of the version of the story, some of the bodies are actually placed in the crypt by Sweeney, and people cannot go to church anymore because it smells so bad. And that's part of the reason why he gets caught eventually. Let me show you the fontaine. So this is a beautiful old fontaine from 1860. Not that I try to remember the date of random old fontaines, but it's written down here. And let me show you up there. You've got Gog and Magog up there, with the bell. So those are pre-Roman gods. And I keep missing stuff in the chat. I don't know what trial we're talking about. And this is Queen Elizabeth I. So we don't have many statues of her, but there's one here. Now, We are now at number 186. So this is the site where the fictional Sweeney Todd would have had his barber shop. Again, that barber shop did not exist. This is fictional. This is from the Penny Dreadful. But there was indeed a barber on Fleet Street that was a murderer. Not on Fleet Street, but near Fleet Street. In the annual register of, I think it's 1784, there's a mention of a barber just off Fleet Street that had a customer that was on liquor. And the customer was bragging about having met a young girl just outside of Hyde Park Corner. And as he described the young girl, the jealous barber was convinced it was his wife. He had been very jealous of his wife for a while. And Natasha, that was Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth I. And as the young man described getting favors from that lady the night before, the young barber, well, I say young, no, I don't know if he was young at all. The barber, in a fit of jealous rage, split his throat. So that is, well, it's in the annual register, so it's probably true. And that could have played a part in the inspiration for the Penny Dreadful, but there was no cannibalism there. There was nothing nothing done with the reference of a horrible barber on Fleet Street. Now there were quite a few references of stories of the sort in France. The first one is actually in Calais. In the 1600s, there's a Swedish sailor that went to Calais, to the port, and in his diaries written in Swedish, he states that he heard. It's not quite clear whether it's a story he's heard at the pub or whether it's a story that was in the news. But apparently he already states that there was a barber that was killing some of his customers, and he was allied with a baker, a male, and he was baking them into pies. So there was already a reference at the time in the 1600s. Bear in mind that in the 1600s, the barbers, they were still surgeons, so they would do minor surgeries like removing a bullet from your skin or cutting off a verruca or whatever it might be. So they were already used to consider human as flesh, as meat. Even a surgeon kind of has to do that, to be able to operate on someone. You have to be able to do that. Anyway, so that was that reference. Then there was another reference at the beginning of the 18th century in this one is a bit confusing as well. It is the Ministry of Police. So it sounds like it's very much a good source of information. A guy called Joseph Fouche that claims that in 1800 on Rue de la Harpe you had a barber that allied with a butcher, a male butcher, and he was killing people and baking them into pies. Now, it's probably not true, and there's actually no information backing that up apart from that Minister of Police. But there were two buildings that were knocked down on Rue de la Harpe at the same time period. So some people assume that it might have been because of the murder. Who knows? We'll never know. And even before the Penny Dreadful, that version of the Parisian story had been published here in London in the 1820s. Then still before the Penny Dreadful, you had Charles Dickens actually had a character that did that in Martin Chuzzlewit. There was a character that did exactly that, bake people into pies. Tom Pinch, I think the guy was. So yeah. Now, if you've only seen the version with Johnny Depp, the last one of the most recent musical, there's a few anachronisms in there. If it is things that were not there, at the beginning of the movie, he comes back from Australia. That version of the Sweeney, that sympathical villain, that was actually invented by Christopher Bond when he did the first musical in the 70s, I think. Before that, in the Penny Dreadful, Sweeney is just evil. And Sweeney and Miss Lovett, they don't have a love affair, they're just evil. When in the musical they are in a love story, Joanna in the Penny Dreadful, she's just a random girl that likes to dress up as a boy, when in the musical she's the daughter. So the whole story of making Sweeney more relatable and like a sympathical villain, that came out with the musical. And the anachronism. So when he comes, Johnny Depp comes on a boat, the Tower Bridge is there. The Tower Bridge is 1894. So it was not there in 1785, and it was not there when the Penny Dreadful was published either. And at some point, Johnny Depp grabs a photograph of his wife. There was no photographs yet. Are they all musicals? No, Natasha. I've watched one recently, the BBC version, I think 2006. It's set in Georgian times, so they've got those wigs and everything. I think it's probably a little bit closer to the original Penny Dreadful, and it's not a musical at all. It was actually quite good. Anyway, let's move on from Sweeney and let's go into Crane Court. I don't actually have anything to tell you about Crane Court, but there was another little court called Fleur de Lis Court that has now disappeared, so I'll show you this one instead. There was a horrible case of, Georgian scam and manslaughter. There was a lady that lived here. She was a midwife, a very respectable lady. She worked for the parish. She would help ladies give birth at the workhouses, and probably at hospitals like the Funding Hospital and stuff like that. So she was a very respectable lady in the area. And her husband was a painter. They had a son, and they were offered by the parish to take some apprentice. So the Georgian apprentice system, they were basically paid by the parish, not paid much money, but the parish would give you a kid. You were meant to train them on a trade, whether you were a hatter or a painter or a heraldic painter on horse and carriages or whatever it might be. You'll train the kid or the teenager on a trade. The parish would give you some money to feed them and give them clothes. You'd have a 1 month trial period. So if that didn't go well with the child, you could still give up after a month, but after that you were bonded with a contract. And I'm not sure what we're talking about, Natasha. Sorry, I've missed something. So the first girl that came with the Bronrigs, her name was Mary. Well, actually, they were all called Mary. They had 3 apprentices, but they were all called Mary. She, for the first months, everything went fine, and when I say abused, horrible violence. The girl was beaten up. Then they took a second apprentice. The first Mary, she managed to escape. Oh, sorry, the camera is not focusing. There we go. She managed to escape, and she ran back to the Funding Hospital, where she was very bruised. She was extremely bruised. She had lost her eyesight into one eye. She was in a terrible state. What did the Foundling Hospital do? They sent a letter to Mr. Brownrigg asking what happened. He never replied. And would you believe they let it go? So then the Brownrigg got a third little Mary. So they had two little Marys left. And again, the abuse continued, horrible abuse. I mean, to give you an idea, one of them had her tongue cut out. One of the mothers actually wanted to come and visit our little Mary, but the Brownriggs couldn't actually let her see her because she was in such a horrible state. And they were used as slaves. I mean, they were not actually taught any trade whatsoever. It was basically not only abuse, but it was also a scam because they'll get money from the parish and they wouldn't even feed them properly. And eventually, one of the residents spotted one of the little Mary in the courtyard. She looked in a terrible state, and that's how they got caught. Elizabeth ran off, but eventually she was caught. She was hanged, and the Western version. Oh, I don't know who did it. But yeah, the one where the one where Miss Lovett is having a lot of sex with a lot of young men, and Sweeney actually kills all of them, so yeah, that's probably the one you're talking about, Kurt. The one where Miss Lovett gets a sexually transmitted disease, and that's when she snapped and become a bit evil herself. That's the one I've watched recently. And it's actually in that version, Sweeney has a little apprentice himself. Anyway, so back to Elizabeth Brownrigg. She was hanged, dissected, and her body was exposed. Not her body, her skeleton was exposed. So horrible story, but it really shows how very respectable people from the outside. And it's always interesting when you have a couple committing such atrocities, because having one psychopath, horrible, two. Anyway, the fleur de lis court. That's one of those horrible cases of abuse. It's quite similar to the story we mentioned the other day in Bleeding Heart Yard. Anyway, let's go towards where Samuel Johnson used to live. Just so you know, I'm going to lower my voice a little bit in this little court because there's a homeless gentleman that sleeps on the floor. So I don't want to wake him up. You don't want those noisy YouTubers to wake you up when you're sleeping on the cold pavement. So yeah, I'm going to be semi-silent for the next 2 minutes, and then I'll be nice, loud, and clear again. So Dr. Johnson is, of course, famous for the dictionary. Would you believe when he was commissioned for the dictionary, they asked him how long it was going to take him? He said 3 years. That's nothing. To give you an idea, there was already a French dictionary. It took the French Academy 40 years to write. So 3 years was nothing. He did not make it in 3 years. It actually took him 9 years. And he was paid in one go. So he actually ran out of money. Anyway, I'll zip it for now. I'm not 100% sure it's the same gentleman. It might have been another one that took his spot, because the other one. Anyway, so this is where Dr. Johnson used to live. Today you can visit it. It's run by a partner of the National Trust. You can actually go inside. I've never done it. I really should. So yeah, Dr. Johnson actually finished his dictionary after 9 years, and he also had a servant that was a former slave, Francis Barber, and after he passed, he actually in his will he gave him quite a big inheritance, so he was a good man. Anyway, the other guy we talked about earlier, Thomas Neil Cream, he lived here. When he was a student at St. Thomas's Hospital, he lived here for a few months at least. I don't know how long for. I don't know which number, but I know he lived on Goth Square. So, Dr. Johnson is not the only famous person that lived here. Yeah, I'm not sure it's the same gentleman, guys. I never really spoke to him. I spoke to him once. But I didn't ask his name or anything, but I'm not 100% sure it's the same. It's a good spot because it's sheltered, so I think it might be someone else that took it over. Anyway, let me get my torch because it's gonna be very dark, but I want you to see Hodge. So Dr. Samuel Johnson, he famously had, hold on. Why are you blinking? There we go. He famously had a cat. So this is Hodge. Now, Hodge speaks. I'm going to play his voice. It's actually one of those talking statues. We have a few of them in London. So there's a little QR code, and you can scan the QR code and listen to their voices. Now, I've actually recorded it, and I'm going to play it into the app. I'm not going to be able to hear it myself because I've got the microphone on. So basically, if you don't hear a voice in the next 30 seconds, let me know. Right. Where is it? There we go.
Hello, and meow. Good of you to call by. I don't mind if you stare at me. Take a good look at me. Examine my expression. I am justifiably proud. I preside in Goth Square in all my glory. Let me tell you about myself. I'll try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation, if you have just a minute to spare. I am Hodge, perhaps the most famous statue in my honor. I'm also the subject of poems and plays and epitaphs. I am quite the feline celebrity. In the 1760s, I resided here with my esteemed owner, Dr. Samuel Johnson, that great man of letters. His masterpiece,
I don't actually know when I'll know when it's
on which I am
finished.
sitting, was universally acclaimed.
If it's
My
finished, let me
favorite
know.
word, cat, is defined as a domestic animal that catches mice. Actually, I much prefer shellfish. Each afternoon, Dr. Johnson would pause from his writing to go out and buy me a plate of fresh oysters. This devotion was noted with some irritation by Dr. Johnson's friend and biographer, James Boswell. He wrote that I was treated with great indulgence. But then, Boswell was never a cat lover. Indeed, he wrote how he suffered a good deal in my presence. I can only say the distaste was mutual. I always made a special point of twining myself among Boswell's legs, as if affectionately, so I could get hairs on his trousers.
Is it finished? Let me know in the
Cats
chat
do
when
that,
it's
you
finished,
know.
because I can actually not
Upon my death,
hear it myself.
the poets
I still
mourned
see the
me.
little thing playing, so let
Elegies
me
were
know
written.
if
Hundreds
it's
of years
finished or
later,
not.
Samuel Beckett cast me in one of his plays. My fame even spread to America, where Vladimir Nabokov included me in an epitaph. What matters is that Dr. Johnson thought me
Cool, it must be
a
not
very,
now. Is it finished? Let me remove
fine
it.
cat
Hopefully it's done.
indeed. Now there's something to purr about.
Cool, it should be done. There we go. Oh, why is it still there? Hold on. Oh, there we go. Cool. Lovely. So let's go and see one of the oldest pubs in London. Oh, was it not finished? Oh, sometimes I get the message a bit... Oh, finished. Perfect. Okay, cool. Cool. So this is the Olde Cheshire cheese. So that's, according to me, the oldest pub in London. It's hard to tell because some pubs are very old, but the license is I mean, the pub might be an old license, but it might have moved, or it might be an old building, but it might have been something else before a pub, or sometimes it's a completely new building. So it's hard to tell. But this one was rebuilt right after the Great Fire of London, and inside it pretty much looks as it would have looked at the time. I think it's might still be open. Is it 11 yet? Probably. And see the, hold on, let me take my torch. See the steps here? It's so worn, so used, that they had to put a metal thing to keep it straight. Because you can see how many people have stepped on that step over the last many years. And IRB. And look, they've added Charles. Some of you might remember last time we came here, they didn't have King Charles. So you've got a list of all the monarchs that have been on the throne since the pub started. So from James II all the way to Anne, all the Georges, William IV, all the way down to King Charles III. So that's a long list of monarchs, and hopefully it'll continue, and you'd have to continue the list all the way to the bottom. It is it's a very cool pub to visit if you come to London, because it really feels like you are in a movie set, really. It has been visited by some big names of over the years, like Dickens or Mark Twain's and a lot of people like this. And one of its most famous residents, it is actually Polly the parrot. Polly was a parrot that was living in the pub at the beginning of the 20th century. And Polly was very famous for its ability to... can we play Roger somewhere from the internet down? I think you'd have to scan the QR code, because I tried to look it up myself without the code and I couldn't find it. So you probably need the QR code. If I come back at daytime one day, I can take a photo of the code and send it to you, and then send you the link. But I actually got the recording from my old phone, so I don't have the link anywhere. Anyway, Polly the parrot was famous for its ability to swear in 9 different languages. So that was a very well-loved parrot. It's still there. They stuffed him and he's above the pub on the right inside when you get in. And when Polly died in the 20s, I think it's 1926, it was all over the news, all over the press, all over the globe, even in the Chinese press, would you believe? Because Polly had been so popular. Well, you know, when you live on Fleet Street, it's not that hard to end up in the newspapers. But yeah. And in '62, there was a little fire in the pub. Not too bad, but the fire revealed a little secret. Oh, look at the letterbox. VR. So you see, VR. Victoria Regina. So the fire revealed bathroom tiles that were over the fireplace. Now, I don't want to be accused of showing you pornography, so if you don't want to see the naughty tiles, close your eyes for a few seconds. I'll show you the pictures. Oops. More. Sorry, I think my fingers are a bit too cold for the touch screen. One more. There we go. So those are the tiles that were found above the pub. So they probably had a brothel. It was not unusual in the 18th century to have brothels over the pubs or over coffee houses. You know, you'd have a different service upstairs. Right, let me remove the photos. 1 second. Okay. We are now at the corner of Shoe Lane. Not much to see, but let me show you the name. There's one lady that you know very well from my tours that was born here and she grew up here. Mary Ann Nichols, aka Polly Nichols, the first of the canonical 5 Ripper victims. She lived on the street of Ink as a young girl in a slum building down there. Yeah, the Museum of London has them now. I don't think they're being exposed, but it's in their collection. Yeah. So Polly was schooled here, so she was lucky. She was able to stay in school a bit longer than some people of her class, or some girls of her class at least. But her mother died out of tuberculosis. Then her little brother did the same, and they lived all together in a very small accommodation. You know, at the time, diseases like tuberculosis, they would transmit by the air you breathe, you know. So when you lived all cramped together in a little room with no public sewer or anything like that, it was a recipe for tuberculosis. Anyway, this is St. Bride's Church. You might not see much in the dark. I've got a picture of what you'd see at daytime. So this is allegedly the church that inspired the wedding cake. It is said that there was a young baker in the area that wanted to give his fiancée the best wedding cake ever, and that he would have got inspired by the spire of the church. And it is here that Polly Nichols got married. So she met a young printer. Her dad was a blacksmith. Let me cross over. And she met William Nichols, married him in St. Bride's. Let me show you the plaque for Polly. So it's great to have something to remember her life rather than her death at the end of Jack the Ripper. So that's quite cute that they did a plaque for her. She did not spend her full life around here. She moved with William. She moved to the other side of the river. She moved to Suffolk, quite close to me as well, just on top of Borges Park. And let me remove that. St. Bride, it's quite, oh god, this chat is gone again, 1 sec. St. Bride, it's quite cool to visit because they have a little museum in the crypt. Hold on. Oh no. Sorry, I think I've lost the chat again. I'm just gonna keep trying for a second and I'll just give up. There's a horrible little bug on Prism. I shouldn't show you that many pictures because it's always when the picture, when I remove the picture, sometimes I lose the chat on everything else and it doesn't come back. Now I think you're gone. Oh well, apologies, I'm not going to be able to see the chat anymore. Oh, I shouldn't show you that many photos because it keeps happening. I don't know why, it's often towards the end of the tour as well. That's good at least. But yeah, so apologies, I've lost the chat and I'm not able to flip the camera around anymore. It's fine anyway, that's going to be our last stop. I just wanted to show you the Old Bell pub. It was built on the site of a former pub that was called the Swan. It was built by Christopher Rains to accommodate the builders that rebuilt St. Bride's after the Great Fire of London, and almost like a hostel to welcome the builder and to accommodate them when they were rebuilding. And it's quite a cool pub as well. And it was also the site of a little drunken mistake. They had a journalist called Eric in 1951. Eric was, he had a big scoop. And, the night after a few drinks for quite a few people in there, there's a young bartender that found a little notebook on the floor. She picked it up and she was going to put it in the lost items when she opened the first page and she read Code Moscow Secret. And we are at the early stages of the Cold War. So she actually called the police. And the police gave it to the MI5. It was actually quite an interesting scoop. The journalist was about to reveal to the world, or to the Brits at least, the existence of the GCH, the Government Communication Headquarters. They were a new team in a new building that were trying to decode all those codes from Moscow and all that. And eventually the MI5 came and gave him the notebook back. They did allow him to publish part of his story, but the full story, the existence of the GCHQ, was only revealed to the. If he had not dropped his little notebook in there, he would have had his big scoop. Although we don't know why he wanted to reveal who knows? A scoop is a scoop. Anyway, that's going to be the end of the tour. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I do apologize. I can't see anything of what you're saying in the chat. I hope you're still here. I'm sure you're still here. I can't flip the camera around either, so I'm going to have to go like this. Thank you for joining tonight. It's always great to have you along. If you want to see a bit more of me, next Friday we're heading to Richmond. So that's cool. So that's next Friday in the afternoon. So it's going to be a bit earlier than this one. And the week after that, we're going back to the docks. So we're going back to the Isle of Dogs. And check my live section, because I've scheduled quite a few. In November, I'm also taking you to Istanbul. So make sure you hit the notification bell on all the tour you want to attend, hopefully all of them. And thank you very much for coming tonight. It's always a pleasure to have you all along. If any of you dropped me a little tip on PayPal, on Buy Me a Coffee, or on YouTube itself, it's very, very much appreciated. I cannot thank you live because I don't see them live, especially now. Even if it's on YouTube, I wouldn't see it now. But it's really thanks to you that I can spend more time coming up with more tours and doing all the research and all that. So thanks ever so much. If you were completely new to me, if you've made it that long into the tour or into the video, you might want to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time. And I'll see you soon. Have a great evening or a great morning, whatever time it is for you. And it's going to take a while because I'm going to have to turn my phone off because I can't close this. So I'm just going to have to turn